did want to dig into a little bit about the way that the human brain is wired based on, and you've got a couple of slides in the deck you shared with me, which evoked some concepts that we've spent quite a lot of time on. This idea that so you've got a slide that shows somebody screaming into a microphone, and I guess the message is current life is noisy. And then the next slide is a snapshot of what looks like the ancient African veldt. And my sense is that you were trying to evoke this idea that our brains, or at least this is where my mind went,
Yeah.
that our brains developed on the African veldt, and now we are applying our brains in this noisy, highly complex world where the complexities are now amplified by orders of magnitude by things like Facebook and other types of social media,
Right.
and the social framing that goes into those, and how, they represent a curated series of experiences of people's lives, and that are not reflective of the true experience. And then you're also exposed to, like in your timeline, in your face every day, the lifestyles, or at least the curated lifestyles of people that are so far above your own perceived status level. And, the sort of tricks that plays, and then
Yeah.
pair that with the interface between the human mind and the complex dynamic feedback system that is modern markets, and how the human brain is almost uniquely ill-suited to interact with modern markets. That's kind of two different directions. So let's sort of start with how has our mind evolved? How do we go from the African veldt to modern society, and then extend that into bad behaviors in interfacing with markets?
Okay. Let me try to tackle that kind of seamlessly and quickly. So I guess the first thing to point out is that, sort of the state of the world, or the state of nature, is always ahead of kind of evolutionary progress. So the pace of evolution is so slow, it's almost impossible to understand. And so, from everything I've read, the brain that we have between our ears is roughly the same brain that Homo sapiens had 100,000 plus years ago, but clearly, the game has changed. We've all heard reference to the lizard brain, and just that sort of animalistic response to fight versus flight, responses to danger, fear versus greed. All of this sits with us, and I think we all know that if you enter a situation that is uncomfortable and potentially dangerous, you become immediately alert. That's not sort of a frontline cognitive process. That's sort of some element of your lizard brain. I don't think, or maybe we'll be around, but the good, let alone the best scholarship, can't be done yet on this question of whether our minds are effectively blowing up in light of how much information we're trying to shove into them. I do believe that, and maybe it's even a truism, maybe it's not even interesting, but, I don't think we've ever had to process more information, or have more choice available to us than at any point before in recorded human history. And there are things that psychologists write about, known as choice overload and decision fatigue, that are, demonstrably real. They're biological. They're physical. And the book that turned me onto behavioral science in 2011, 2012 or so was not Kahneman, Tversky, Thaler. It was Sheena Iyengar's The Art of Choosing. And it's just an elegant meditation. I mean, she's brilliant. So when I say meditation, it's not soft, it's science. But it is an elegant meditation on how important choice is to our humanity. and the control that we seek and crave, the certainty that we want in our environment so that we can at minimum feel safe. Because before we thrive, we have to survive, and that's just part of us. So, I think it's casual and anecdotal, but I think we are overwhelmed by all of the stuff, and social media is such a new experiment, but it seems to be having on the margins harmful consequences. I'm not necessarily on brain development, but how the brain processes it. Um, you,
Group dynamics and group development and tribalism. And I mean, it's really, I think, hard to disassociate the evolution of social media and the sort of omnipresent access to social media, um, and the current political climate.
I
It
agree.
it does prompt the question: would we be in this clusterfuck of a political climate if people did not have such easy access to echo chambers that just continue to play to the
Yeah.
dopaminergic um, reactions from confirmation bias, and it's
Yeah, I think the answer is no. I mean, I don't. It sounds like your answer is no, or that's the way you were going. I think that because, and here the work of Jonathan Haidt has just been really influential to me, and he's such a smart guy, so illuminating. I really appreciate him. Probably the best scholar in showing how we sort of have the beliefs that we have the values that we have, and it's a separate question and maybe a mystery as to why we are the way we are, but we spend most of our lives just validating our pre-existing identity, and the ability for a few billion people to all have a superpowered media channel where all of us have our own TV and radio stations 24/7, the ability to find people who reinforce what it is you need, not want, but need to believe in order to feel safe and validated. It, we're not going to talk about kind of constitutionalism and originalism and all that kind of stuff today, but one of the reasons I have a challenge with just sort of praising the founding fathers of America for all the work that they did, which obviously was of very high quality, is that I think the world that exists now is just unimaginable from just a few decades ago, let alone a few centuries ago. Doesn't mean that that challenges some fundamental beliefs about liberty, justice, fairness, other core concepts within democratic theory. But at the same time, what's happening to us subconsciously or consciously, but involuntarily, it's overwhelming, man. Yeah, I think it's an absolute mess, and I don't see how the genie goes back in the bottle.
I agree. And one of the interesting dimensions that sort of falls out of this, I mean, you talk about the decision fatigue